Welcome to Here's to Your Health with Joshua Lane. Here's to Your Health discusses the current thinking in wellness, bringing you the most influential thinkers in beauty, fitness, and longevity. Your host, Joshua Lane, was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that helped bring wheatgrass sprouts and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health, Joshua Lane.
Welcome to this edition of Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane. My guest today, a return visitor to the show, is Sylvie Beljanski. Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer, The Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure, which is about the work of her father, Mikhail Beljanski, Ph.D., at the Pasteur Institute in Paris. And the father's formulations literally helped to save the life of French President François Mitterrand while he was president of France to complete his second term in office. Very impressive. Sylvie Beljanski, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be with you this morning. It's wonderful that I have this opportunity to explain what my father's work is about, because I think it is so relevant and nowadays even more than ever. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. On the show Here's to Your Health, I always try to have first-rate thinkers about wellness. And certainly you fall in that category, and the work of your father, Mikhail Beljanski, Ph.D., falls in that category of very important thinking about science that has been verified and still, for some reason, not as well known as it needs to be. So please tell listeners. Now, I guess it's important to start out right away that your father, working in France, became so well known that François Mitterrand, while he was president of France, who had advanced prostate cancer, learned of the work of your father and of the formulations that were being used by physicians to heal prostate cancer, and he began to use those. So let us please start with François Mitterrand. Please tell us about your father's work and how he helped François Mitterrand.
Thank you very much for your kind words and that introduction, Josh. Indeed, my father was a biologist at the Pasteur Institute, and he was one of the first who looked at the environment as a cause and also as a solution to cancer. And that gave him some kind of leg up to find natural compounds that would do exactly the opposite of carcinogens, meaning would go to the DNA, destabilize DNA of cancer cells and prevent their duplication. And because we have one DNA from head to toe, this way to address cancer is not specific to gender or to organs. It works at the level of the DNA, wherever it is destabilized. So my father had this, back in the 80s, he started to speak about those natural compounds, which are non-toxic, have no side effects. And he got the interest of a lot of French doctors. He became, at the center of a kind of a network of French doctors who were using those products with a lot of success. And indeed, when François Mitterrand, the former French president of the Republic, got very sick and diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer, he knew one of those doctors who had good results on prostate, but not just on prostate, but good results on prostate because that was of the interest of François Mitterrand. And he had this doctor come to the French White House, the Élysée, and he started to take those products. And indeed, against all odds, he was able to finish his second term when the country was, the prime minister was told to to prepare the country for early elections. That was not necessary, and Mitterrand survived 2 more years in full capacity.
Yes, that is actually, I wanted to start with Francois Mitterrand because I want the listeners of Here's to Your Health to recognize how well received the work of your father, Mirko Beljanski, PhD, was at the time, how successful it was. And also, if I could mention this, didn't Francois Mitterrand, when he left office, he gave an interview for Paris Match, which in those days, in those days in the 90s, I guess it was a very influential magazine, I guess on par with the American Look or Life magazine. I mean, everybody read it. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes. I mean, you have to understand that the president was dying, and then suddenly it started to get better and better. And that was the talk of the country. Can you go back from what is diagnosed as a terminal cancer and look so much better and being able to run a country?
Right. No, it's quite impressive.
That means there were a lot of journalists asking questions, and indeed, Mitterrand gave a long interview to a magazine Paris Match, where he gave the name of the naturopath doctor who was prescribing my father's products.
Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, the author of a book called Winning the War on Cancer, The Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure, about the research of her father, Mirko Beljanski, PhD, who for many years was at the Pasteur Institute in France, and also Monique Beljanski, Sylvie's mom, also a PhD, who worked in conjunction with Mirko Beljanski on many of his scientific, I'll use the word, experiments or projects. Sylvie, what are the medicinal herbs that your father tested and found to be effective against cancer? And again, something that's also very important for the listeners to hear is that these cancer healing herbs are non-specific, that they're not gender-based and they're not organ-based, which is interesting. So it's not like you have liver cancer, you got to take a specific thing. No, this works on cancers. And that is something that I guess the pharmaceutical industries had a problem with as well. So what are those medicinal herbs that your dad researched so successfully?
So my father perfected a number of extracts. 2 have direct anti-cancer properties. It's an extract of Pao Pereira and Revolfia vomitoria. Pao Pereira is a tree which grows in South America from the Amazon. The traditional use is for malaria and fevers and things like that. And my father was the first one to see the benefit for cancer and also for viruses. The second one, Revolfia vomitoria, is coming from Africa, where also it has traditional use as calming, regulating hormones. And my father perfected the extract in a way where he removed the main alkaloid, the main molecule of this extract, because it was inducing some kind of toxicity. And so it is a Revolfia vomitoria extract which is reserpine-free and very rich in alstonine. And alstonine has the ability also to fight cancer cells wherever they are located. And it's very, more specifically attracted by cancer cells which are in hormonal-dependent tissues like prostate or breast or thyroid. So a combination of Pao Pereira and Revolfia vomitoria is generally highly beneficial to a number of people.
And our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of Winning the War on Cancer. We're speaking about the 2 of the medicinal plants that her father, Mirko Beljanski, a PhD from the Pasteur Institute in France, researched, and Pao Pereira and Revolfia vomitoria. Now, these two are these 2 medicinal plants or herbs, if I'm not sure the exact term, is this what Francois Mitterrand used? Is this the formulation he used to heal his advanced prostate cancer? Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. That's what he took the pauperas, the revolver vomitoria. Because he was also on the chemotherapy, he took little RNA fragments. Mitterrand took some RNA fragments that my father perfected. Those are specific of the DNA of the bone marrow, and they help the bone marrow do its job. And the job of the bone marrow is to create white blood cells and platelets. And those cells are depleted by chemotherapy. So by providing the body with the means to create a new generation of white blood cells and platelets, you avoid many of the side effects of chemotherapy while keeping the benefit of destroying a number of cancer cells.
Excuse me, our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of Winning the War on Cancer. Sylvie, you're commenting now on what your father's research on the E. coli K12 based RNA fragments. Is that what we're speaking about?
Absolutely. It's a very unique product that my father perfected based on a bacteria where everything is all the chromosome, all the genetic material of the bacteria is removed, and just those little RNA are highly purified, chopped, and they are very similar to the RNA that we naturally create, but in small quantities, and need at the level of our gut to create everything the body needs to regenerate.
Sylvie, these RNA fragments, your father literally discovered this. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, he absolutely created those RNA fragments. Absolutely.
And what year was that?
Oh, that was in the 70s.
And may I ask, and your father has published papers in scientific journals on that subject, and have those journals been translated to other languages besides French?
Yes, my father left a legacy of 133 peer-reviewed papers. The first ones were in French, and he got barred by the French establishment to publish. So he avoided the French ban by publishing in English in American magazines. And the second half of his 133 peer-reviewed papers are all in English, and many of them are dedicated to all those extracts that he perfected.
Alrighty, so even back in the 70s, even though your father was at the Pasteur Institute, which was, I think at the time, the most prestigious scientific organization in Europe at the time, is that correct?
It was one of the luminaries of cancer research back in the 80s. Jacques Monod, François Gros got a Nobel Prize in the 80s, and that really put the Pasteur Institute at the center of research on cancer at the end of the past century, it is fair to say. What happened is that the official approach was all about the genetic code, because they understood very early on that that would lead to new research that could translate into patents and make a lot of money.
Right.
And indeed, a lot of new drugs that have come to development since the 80s are all about some addressing some genetic mutation, even though most of the cancers that people have at large are not resulting from genetic mutations. They are resulting, for 95%, are resulting from the accumulation of toxins that destabilize slowly but surely our DNA to the point where it cannot repair itself and evolves into cancer DNA. But my father's approach was completely different from the official establishment. He said that very early on, from the 70s, 80s, he said most of the cancer can result without a mutation. We have to look somewhere else to solve this pandemic of cancer. And his approach was not appreciated at all. Since the 70s, 80s, all the companies who were polluting and did not want to hear about any responsibility and the pollution leading to disease. So he got a lot of pushback,
right,
to say the least, until the day in 96 where the French army went to destroy his laboratory, raid his laboratory, and try to wipe his research out of the face of this earth.
So, Sylvie, you're saying that while Francois Mitterrand, who completed his second term of office because of the medicinal herbs your father and the formulations your father recommended, and then he lived several years after that, and after his passing, you're saying that the French military, not the police, raided the laboratory of Mirko Beljanski, Ph.D. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And they destroyed the man, they destroyed the laboratory, they tried to destroy all of this research. It's really a miracle, and it's thanks to the dedication and courage of dozens of people who put their efforts together to salvage whatever paper was they could salvage, and send that to me here in the States, that this research is still alive today.
Right.
And that still the results of this research is still able to help so many people around the world.
Right. Right. Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer, who is the daughter of Mirko Beljanski, the Ph.D., and Monique Beljanski, Ph.D. And Mirko Beljanski was associated for many years with the Pasteur Institute in France, one of the most important scientific organizations in Europe at the time. Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer. Sylvie, so you were actually born, you are a graduate attorney, and you went to the Sorbonne undergraduate, and so you were born in the United States. Your father at the time was working with a Nobel Prize-winning PhD. His last name was Ochoa. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct. My father got a 2-year fellowship to come here at NYU, and they were pregnant with me at the time. So I was born here, but the fellowship only lasted 2 years. So I was raised in Paris, France, where indeed I went to the Sorbonne, I became a lawyer, and then I had the opportunity to come back here to work as a foreign legal associate in a law firm. And it was at that time that I learned about the head of my father's laboratory, and I decided that this knowledge could not disappear, that something had to be done. And I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to salvage this knowledge, to create the Beljanski Foundation here in New York, which is a non-for-profit, and carry on with the research. I have to say that also that we took the case in France to the European Court of Human Rights because there was no way for my father to have his day in court. Actually, he passed away without ever having his day in court. And we won an unanimous case at the European Court of Human Rights, where they recognized that the basic human rights of my father had been violated by the French government.
Well, that's actually shocking. Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, who is a graduate attorney and the daughter of Mirko Beljanski, the Ph.D. And Sylvie has a book called Winning the War on Cancer. And Sylvie so remember, the French military, not the police, the military raided the laboratory of her father, Mirko Beljanski, seized all his equipment without a court order, took all his records, took everything, and then, as I understand it, they literally made your father stay in the laboratory overnight. Some men in hazmat suits came in, sprayed something all over the laboratory, insisted your father stay in the laboratory, and he was a healthy man in his early 70s, and then several months later, he developed leukemia. Is that correct?
Yes. Acute leukemia in less than 3 months after the raid, and when we did our best to support him, but there was no more products. Everything has been, all the products have been seized by the French government. So it was this tragic situation where he has spent his life perfecting products to help other people, and when he needed them, they were no longer available.
This is really shocking, and I see myself as a very rather conservative person, and I'm just, I believe you, and it just amazes me that the French government would do this, and again, not send the police to your father's laboratory with a warrant, but send the military. That is really shocking. It's shocking, really.
With dogs, with machine guns, like if they were going to war.
Right. And so you're keeping the work alive. Once again, for listeners of Here's to Your Health, Sylvie, guest is Sylvie Beljanski. Sylvie, tell us, what are the medicinal, I'll use the word herbs, or maybe plants is a better word, what are the medicinal herbs that your father found to be effective against many types of cancer?
So the Pao Pereira, which comes from the Amazon, has anti-cancer and antiviral effect. The Revolvia vomitoria has also anti-cancer effect, especially effective against those cancer cells which are in hormonal-dependent tissues like prostate or breast or thyroid. There is ginkgo biloba, which we have, at the Beljanski Foundation, we have a program on melanoma right now with ginkgo biloba. It's a bowl made of golden leaves. It's a very unique ginkgo extract, a very specific extraction process made only with golden leaves. And we are seeing that it is inducing angiogenesis, preventing angiogenesis, which is angiogenesis is a way for a tumor to feed itself by creating more blood supply, by creating more blood vessels, and the golden ginkgo biloba extract prevents the cells, the cancer cells, to create more blood vessels to feed themselves. So it's another way, a little bit indirect, but very interesting way also to prevent cancer. And also this ginkgo biloba extract helps regulate enzymes, helps regulate the RNA, so it helps support the body. It's a natural fight against cancer cells.
Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, and we're commenting on the medicinal herbs that her father discovered to be successful. Now, ginkgo biloba has been very popular in the United States for at least 30 years, but people, the herbalists who use it, do not use the golden leaves, which are more mature when the leaves turn golden. And so your father is the one who discovered that at a different stage in the leaf's development, if that's the correct term, there are different medicinal properties. That really is a remarkable discovery. It's just remarkable. And as I understand it, that these ginkgo trees literally help protect the body against radiation. So we're chatting with Sylvie Beljanski about ginkgo biloba, but the form that her father discovered is so successful is when the leaves have turned golden. So it's different from the ginkgo biloba used in the United States and Europe for the past 30 years, which is great for memory, circulation, cold hands and feet, vision. But this ginkgo, is the golden leaves, seems to work better. it's just, I hate to say it, it's just a remarkable discovery. It's just remarkable that one person could be so clever. Sylvie, also, your grandparents, who I believe were also scientists, didn't they help your father and mother gather ginkgo leaves?
Well, they did that on a small scale because it was all just about the research at the time.
Right.
But yes, indeed, my grandfather was a distinguished scientist. Together with my grandmother, they went on public parks to collect golden leaves in season, and they got arrested actually for stealing leaves, and that was a family story. But the ginkgo, the golden leaf ginkgo extract is pretty interesting because it's very versatile. It helps with the liver by regulating the enzymes of the liver. The liver itself being supported this way creates more collagen, which helps fight and avoid fibrosis that can be induced by radiation. And the latest research done at Kansas University Medical Center with the support of the Beljanski Foundation is showing that those ginkgo leaves, golden ginkgo leaves, help prevent angiogenesis.
All right. Now, our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer. Now, Sylvie, as I understand it, when you came to the United States and were looking for ways to promote the scientific research of your father, Mirko Beljanski, you recognized that American universities would need to do their own studies to validate this information. So please tell us about how you worked with Columbia University, and Columbia University did studies supporting the claims of your father, Mirko Beljanski.
Oh, it was absolutely sheer luck. I mean, at the beginning, after my father's passing, I recognized that I needed to create a network with the French doctors who had known and supported my father's work. So I created a symposium in New York and invited them. About 100 of them came. And I was able also to invite a handful of American doctors, holistic doctors. And one of the few doctors who came was Dr. Michael Schachter, a very well-known, well-respected holistic doctor, who immediately understood how my father's work was different and scientifically sound. And he decided to write an article to read more about document himself more about my father's work, and to write an article about his work. And I was so proud when this first paper came out, gave a copy of everybody I knew, including my banker, who was a patient of Dr. Aaron Katz at Columbia University. And Dr. Katz had read the paper and called me and said, "Gee, this is Dr. Katz at Columbia University. Seems like what you have is pretty interesting. Could we meet?" And that was the beginning of collaboration with Columbia University and the Beljanski Foundation that lasted for several years and led to a very deep research on prostate cancer with Pao Pereira and Rodolfia Vomitoria. And we were able to confirm that both of those extracts were working not only on cancer cells, but also on precancerous cells, like inflammation of the prostate, benign prostate hyperplasia, and also advanced cancer cells that do not respond anymore to hormonal treatment. Those papers, Dr. Katz spoke at some conferences about this line of research, And that led to the interest of another university, Kansas University Medical Center. I was sitting next to a doctor from Kansas University Medical Center who told me, this is fascinating, this destabilization of the DNA. Would you have something that works also for women? And I said, yes, the same thing, because it's not organ or gender specific. And that's how we started to work with Kansas University Medical Center on ovarian and pancreatic cancer. And that led to new publications that confirmed that, again, that both extracts, Paupera and Revoltia vomitoria, were working on those cancer cells in vitro and in vivo, but also working very well in synergy with chemotherapies like gemcitabine or carboplatin. And then we went on to work on cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells are resisting chemotherapy. They are not destroyed by chemotherapy, so that's why you see those relapse in the 5 years. After 5 years, very often of cancer, new tumors are being formed because chemotherapy or radiotherapy have not destroyed cancer stem cells. So it was very interesting to see if those little Paupera and Revoltia vomitoria were able to recognize selectively those cancer stem cells and destroy them. And indeed they do. The research was done again in vitro and in vivo on pancreatic and ovarian cancer. So a very beautiful body of work.
Well,
I have to tell that all those publications are available on the website of the foundation, beljanski.org, beljanski.org. The idea to make that to the public first is in line with my father's values. And also, I hope that they will create an access to knowledge for all the people who are suffering from cancer. They will be able to go to this website, download the publications, and start a discussion with their doctor about using eventually those extracts if needed.
Amazingly good science. Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski. Sylvie Beljanski is a practicing attorney here in the United States and the author of the book Winning the War on Cancer, which is about the work of her father, Mikhail Beljanski, PhD, whose studies are just so important. And then to verify them here in the United States, great work done by Columbia University, Aaron Katz, the MD there, and also at Kansas University, at the Kansas University Medical Center. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after these important messages. Sylvie, are the treatment ideas of your father, Mikhail Beljanski, being used currently at centers around the United States? Is the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, are they using your formulations?
Well, they have done a clinical trial for the RNA fragments, the real fragments you were speaking about, made of E. coli K12. They have published the results, and for some reason that really escapes to me, they are not really using the product. When it is only 6 doctors around the country, and I would say around the world, who are actually using the products, recommending the products to the benefit of their patients. Not so much about cancer.
I understand. And Sylvie, at this juncture, so please tell listeners of Here's to Your Health, how can they contact you directly and purchase the ginkgo biloba, the golden leaves, and the Paupera and Rufa vomitoria? How can they get those from you?
So the research has been done with products. You cannot do research, in a vacuum. So you have to all the samples that were used for the research were offered by MaisonBeljanski.com. MaisonBeljanski.com. This company is located in New York City. We are 317 East 53rd Street, New York, 10022. And you can reach out to the people to get more information. All the products that have been used for the research are available on the website of Maison Beljanski.
Yes.
But if you want information about the research is being conducted through the foundation. So the research, information about the research is on beljanski.org.
And our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, daughter of Mirko Beljanski, the PhD from the Pasteur Institute in France. And Sylvie Beljanski is a graduate attorney, a practicing attorney, and her book is called Winning the War on Cancer. Sylvie, let's say a person is healthy, they're healthy, but they think, well, if the golden ginkgo biloba are good for me, the pauperia, rufa vomitoria are good for me, can people who are just, say, healthy, athletic people, or people who want to be healthy, can those herbs be used by a person who is, in their opinion, healthy, but they want to remain healthy?
Well, that's what I am doing for myself. I think, our body is creating destabilized cells every day. Our body has the ability to have some kind of checkpoint control to destroy destabilized cells as we form them. But sometimes, for some reason, because we are tired, because we are depleted in something, because we are stressed out, because we are overwhelmed sometimes with something, some toxins, depending on our lifestyle, we can, the check control point can fail. And that if it fails, that's when a destabilized cell can grow and turn into cancer cells that will multiply. So what you want to do is to provide the body give the body a kind of second chance to recognize the cells which are destabilized and destroy them. I don't take personally the extracts all the time, but from time to time, when I'm tired, I take a cone of Spielbild, of the RNA fragment. It's healthy. It's really an excellent pick-me-up, also for the mood, for the immunity. And during the pandemic, I continued to work. I continued to do as much as I could, and I took some Tau Pereira regularly because of the antiviral effect. And I have to say, I did not get sick, despite the fact that I got in contact with a few people who got the virus.
I see. Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer. Really a very, very good book. So, Sylvie, if I can, this is personal, but at one point you were under a lot of pressure, and your health was was in decline. And as I understand it, you had cysts on your ovary, had problems with uterus, and didn't the physicians want to remove your ovaries and take out your uterus? And
yes.
You were in Lenox Hill Hospital by yourself, and it was really a low point in your life. And what did you do so that was not required?
So, I included that part in the chapter in my book because I do believe that emotional health is a real important part of our health. We are one. And doing the work, understanding what makes you sick, addressing our emotions is absolutely paramount to being a healthy, vibrant person. And sometimes it might be difficult. Sometimes it might mean putting an end to some toxic relationships, but that's absolutely necessary. It's part of the price we have to pay. And I did the work, and I am doing much better.
All right. Well, thank you. That was personal. I appreciate you for talking about that. And Sylvie, may I ask, what medicinal formulas did you personally use that you felt helped you in that stress situation?
Well, I used a number of things. I believe that it's really important to detoxify as much as possible. Again, the fragments of RNA really help support the immune system in a very good way. I also believe in detoxification of the liver, and I had one of the reasons that triggered my condition was that I had arsenic poisoning, and I believe that a number of people who are actually poisoned by heavy metals is much higher than they think. And it is really important from time to time to check your heavy metals content and, if necessary, do some kind of detoxification. I created my own formula for heavy metal removal because I could not find anything on the market that really covered all the steps of detoxification, from attracting the heavy metals to fixing them and then helping the removal. If you miss one of those steps, the heavy metals are going to stay in the body, recycled, and burden even more the liver. So it's really, really important to cover all the steps from attracting the heavy metals to complete elimination.
Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer. Sylvie, my question for you is, how would a person such as yourself accumulate arsenic in the body? Is it from pesticides? Is it from the water? Is it from cosmetics? Where, in your opinion, are we getting a lot of arsenic in our system?
Well, arsenic is everywhere. Heavy metals are everywhere, and indeed, you listed a number of causes like pesticides. Water is polluted now, so everything is polluted. Turns out that some people have some kind of genetic deficiency, and they do not eliminate heavy metals as well as they should. And it turns out that this kind of deficiency is actually pretty common. And I do have this deficiency, so I keep accumulating heavy metals. This often goes underdiagnosed, but if you don't do anything about it, well, first you are sluggish, tired, and you don't understand why, and then eventually that can lead to cancer, inflammation, and other chronic diseases.
Wow. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's very, very well stated. Our guest is Sylvie Beljanski, author of the book Winning the War on Cancer, The Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure, which I really recommend listeners of Here's to Health. Please read that book. It's very easy to read and has an amazing amount of important information clearly presented. Again, her father, Mirko Beljanski, was the PhD whose work on medicinal plants saved the life of President Francois Mitterrand of France while he was in office, able to complete his second term, lived several years after that, and he survived from advanced prostate cancer. And this was after he had surgery. You know, he hit upon Beljanski's ideas after all the surgery and all the work had been done on him. It's very impressive. Important medicinal herbs, the ginkgo biloba golden leaves, palperia, Raufa vomitoria, if I pronounce those correctly, the E. coli K12-based RNA fragments. I mean, it's impressive, the body of research. Sylvie, we have several minutes left. Please tell listeners of Here's to Your Health where they can contact you directly to learn more about your book, Winning the War on Cancer, and about your center in New York City, Maison Beljanski.
Yes, so I have my own website, sylviebeljanski.com. There is also the website of the company where the extracts can be purchased. It's maisonbeljanski.com, maisonbeljanski.com. And of course, there is a website of the foundation, beljanski.org, where all my father's research can be found, the list of all of his papers, and all the research conducted through the Beljanski Foundation's funding, both at Columbia University, at Kansas University Medical Center, and Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We are doing a lot of research at the Beljanski Foundation. We are dedicated doing research with natural compounds. This research with natural compounds is not going to be done by pharmaceutical companies, because when it's natural, it's not invented. If it's not invented, it cannot be patented. No patent, no money. But it doesn't mean that this research, even though it doesn't lead to a lot of money, is not really important to save lives. And actually, I believe that's what is, at the end of the day, the most important.
Our guest has been Sylvie Beljanski. A remarkable interview. Sylvie Beljanski is the daughter of Mirko Beljanski, Ph.D., who helped his formulations, herbal formulations, non-patentable, helped heal President of France, Francois Mitterrand, of advanced prostate cancer after he had surgery and radiation. Still, these formulations helped. The book is called Winning the War on Cancer. You can contact Sylvie at maisonbeljanski.com. That's MAISONBELJANSKI.com. MAISONBELJANSKI.com. Remarkable medicinal plants, safe, non-toxic, good for men, good for women, remarkably healing. I'm thrilled that Sylvie Beljanski was a guest today on Here's to Your Health. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after these important messages. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health with Joshua Lane. If you have any questions about the guests or topics discussed tonight, please give us a call at 818-707-0005. That number is 818-707-0005. This is Josh Lane. On behalf of the cast and crew, I would like to wish you a healthy and safe good evening.